Welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We have on the phone Mike Summersgill. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for talking to us. Of course, you are the Republican nominee for the Township Committee, and of course, the election is coming up November 8th. You run against Frank McGahee, who is the Democratic nominee, and you will be filling the seat left vacant by Marlon Brownlee, who resigned in August to move out of town. Of course, people know Ian Grobman was appointed to fill his spot, but he will give up that seat January 1st to either you or Mr. McGahee. And you seem to be the first Republican, as you and I have talked, who was really running with some real effort in a few years in Maplewood. And why don't you tell people, first of all, how long have you been in Maplewood?
We have been in Maplewood for 8 years. We moved in August. I guess that was 2008. And my math's not great, but it's definitely been 8 years. And we live on Prospect Street over by St. Joe's Church, so Springfield Avenue area.
Well versed in the Hilton neighborhood. And
yeah, it's been fun because we've seen a lot happen on Springfield Avenue. So when we first moved in, I guess it was Indigo Smoke was in the spot.
That's right.
Was HLS and is now, and then it moved downtown to become Coda.
Right.
But it's kind of cool when you know those little connections of how things have shifted. And so we've seen a lot on Springfield Avenue the last 8 years.
And you and your wife have 3 children.
2 children.
2.
With a third on the way in February.
Well, I don't think I knew that. We're breaking news right now.
Yeah.
Because your youngest is less than a year old, correct?
2
or 2 years old? Okay.
She turned 2 in August, and then my oldest will be 5 in October, but misses the cut for kindergarten.
So. But we'll be going to Tuscan eventually?
Yeah, we're also looking at Seth Boyden, too. I didn't know as much about the school, but we were kind of slightly involved with the outdoor learning center that they built.
Yes.
And it definitely piqued my interest. It's a fantastic space. I do like being able to walk to the school, and Seth Boyden might be a little bit on the stretch for that. But, we haven't made any decisions, but we're definitely looking at both options.
And your third child, as you said, due in February?
Yep, it's going to be another girl. So
excellent.
I'm used to being outnumbered, and then I guess the Township Committee wouldn't be any different.
There you go. And you tell everybody who might know what do you do for a living?
Right now, I work for Salesforce. They are the 4th largest technology company in the world, primarily working with customers, helping them connect with their customers. So at the simplest level, it's a CRM platform, but it's actually really grown since its founding about 17 years ago. I primarily work with customers after they have our platform installed and help them get the most out of what they're using. So I make recommendations around how they can connect the technology to their business processes, what their peers are doing, and also keep them up to speed with the technology as it changes. So it's a really fun job because I'm just a resource that my clients get to tap into, and I get to learn a lot about their business.
Excellent. How old are you now?
I will be 36 in December.
So you'll be 37 when you take office if you win.
I will still be 36 because December I turned 36. So then January. Okay. Unless you were clairvoyant about my.
No, I was misrepresenting. So you will be 36.
I will be 36, yes.
And so now, how long have you been a Republican, and why did you join up and stay with the Republican Party?
I have been a Republican ever since I registered, and I believe I registered to vote when I turned 18 as part of the whole, selective service and registration.
Oh, sure.
And all that stuff. So I would say from that perspective, I've been, Republican my whole voting life. Lived in New Jersey, so I've never seen New Jersey vote for a Republican president, but it's just been something that has been part of my family, and I have some. I guess that was probably where the roots of it are.
And what's your background, where you grew up and educated and all?
So I grew up in southern New Jersey, so Moorestown.
Sure, Moorestown.
My whole teenage life always saying, "Oh, I'm from Morristown." Everyone's saying, "Oh, Morristown."
Yeah, we know people in Morristown. That's the only reason we know that it's a different place, and that's South Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. So I lived briefly in Medford, and then moved to Morristown, and was there through for pretty much my whole school career. So I actually attended Morristown Friends School, which is a private Quaker school, up until 4th grade, and then I was in the public school system, for the next 8 years.
And what about after high school? Where did you go to school?
After high school, I went to Cornell University up in Ithaca, New York.
Sure.
It was, I like to think of it as somewhat of a coup. Such a great school, and I went as an engineer and really had to work. It was, the classic problem of, you think you're a really smart high school student, and then you get thrown into a bunch of really smart high school students, and you realize you're not nearly as smart as you thought you were. But that's where I met my wife. She went to Cornell as well, and of course a lot of friends that I'm still friends with from my time there. So it was a great experience, and I've found that the alumni network has been pretty solid too, with notable Maplewoodians who come out of the woodwork as Cornellians as well, which I wasn't expecting when I started this race.
Excellent. And so now you've talked a lot. I know for anyone who hasn't seen the first candidates forum that was at the DeHart Center, that's on our website, you mentioned in several areas about you are very fiscally conservative. Maybe not even conservative is the right word, but like believe that the township committee needs to be as fiscally prudent and really check spending on everything and maybe review a lot of spending approaches more than they do. How do you look at sort of the finances and what you would want to do differently or in addition to what the township committee does already with the budget?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's not that they don't focus on it or they don't review it. It's I would just say it's just a slightly different approach, and it really just goes down to like when we're spending money, there's got to be you've got to really put a focus into what it's going to, what are we going to get for the money? Is it an investment? What's our long-term plan? And then do we have the money to spend in the first place? And there's been some good financial decisions, which I kind of ran out of time to talk about during the debate forum. But one was, there was a proposal to upgrade the fire safety radios. And Mr. Manning, the township administrator, was like, my feeling is that in the next 2 to 3 years, the system is going to upgrade again, and we're going to lose that interoperability or communication between towns, because we're going to be on an old version of the system and everyone's going to be on the new one. So he made a recommendation to hold off and purchasing that system this year, even though it's something that's a need that's been identified. And I thought that was great. I mean, that's the kind of discussion and dialogue that you want to see. And but I do have concerns when we don't make hard decisions. And I really, I was opposed to the tax appraisal. It was $411,000 that we had to do this year because Essex County, mandated it. But the budget was still open at that time, and we could have included it in the budget. And instead, we did an emergency appropriation, which was legal. But we didn't have to do it that way, and I would have rather seen us include it in the budget, make the decisions. If we include it, there's things that we weren't going to be able to do this year. But that's part of being prudent in your decision making, and I am concerned that the debt that we have is going to really start to tie our hands in future years. We're up to, I think it's like 42 or 44 million into a budget of 42 million. Those payments are going to impact service delivery at some point if we don't make different decisions.
What areas do you think should be more? Or not, I'm saying areas you would cut, but areas you would maybe limit or reduce to ease that debt and less future debt.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get into the operations themselves. I mean, that's how I've applied myself in my career. It's like you have to get in and really look at what things are being done and why and how, and then you have a better basis to make decisions. So that would be probably the first 6 months of my tenure would be just with really in a learning curve to get that baseline so I can make good decisions. But outside of that, I definitely can comment on things I've seen this year in the Township Committee. And I think the sign in front of City Hall, Town Hall, is a great example. So, we had $30,000 allocated to that. The town decided not to do it, which I think was partly based on public feedback, and I think they made a good decision that we shouldn't put that sign in. I would have rather seen that $30,000 just go back as a savings to the town and not spend it, or I would have liked to have seen us do the next item on the budget that we thought was a good idea that we couldn't afford in this year's budget. So there was something sitting there that we should have taken a look at, and we didn't. Instead, we're exploring, and I think they're going to do it, and I hope they don't, to buy 2 mobile electronic
Right, they want to use the mobile signs, which are cheaper but are still cost money.
Yeah, they still cost money, and they were not on anyone's radar as part of the budget process. So, is that a good idea, or is that just the latest idea? And for me, it's like, if you're going to provide another mobile emergency sign, and 2 of them actually, how many times do we use our current mobile emergency sign? Do we find that when we have it one place, we need it somewhere else? And if we're just doing this for emergencies, then it's probably more cost effective to just rent a sign when we need it instead of, purchasing 2 and having 3. So things like that, I just would like to see more discussion. I think Greg Lembrich sometimes nibbles around the edges of, I don't want to say playing a devil's advocate, but you can tell he needs convincing. And I'd like to see more of that kind of behavior on the Township Committee where, they need convincing before they proceed.
And one of the other things that you brought up the other night, and obviously a big issue in town, is development. There's the 235 units at Avalon Bay going in by the pool. There's obviously the post office project. There's other elements going on near DeHart, new additions to the buildings that are down there already. The project across from the police station is going to have some apartments, and now we found out where DiPietro's caterers is. There's going to be 30 apartments going in there.
Yeah, 30. Yeah.
And forcing out the long-time business, and I'm probably leaving out some others. But you mentioned, is this too much development, or is it put a lid on it after this? What's your take on kind of how that's all been really piling on?
I mean, I think that the township has been, with the previous administrations and people that are in place, they've really been operating under the theory that in order to grow tax revenue, we need to grow it with people. And then you try to do it in a smart fashion so that you can add people that aren't going to add burdens to the services and the cost of delivering services, i.e. people that don't have school children. And I don't think we've seen that be successful. If you look at the numbers and don't get much more than the headline, but the population of Maplewood's been pretty steady. It's about 24,000 people from the 2000 census to 2015. It's not a census, but one of the reports that comes out in the interim. We've seen our community over the age of 60. So population over the age of 60 has gone from like 4,000 people up to around 6,000 people. So that's a population that is definitely not going to have school-age children. Yet our cost to deliver services just in the last 5 years has gone up about $6 million. So the math hasn't worked. The theory is not proving to be successful. I would rather see us spend more time on businesses and recruiting and creating a business-friendly culture, and I'm talking net new businesses. And I thought it was a shame to see the PSE&G plot of land go to additional real estate properties when that could have done something else from a commercial perspective. And because you only have so many properties like that in town, and now it's another one that's gone. I am interested and optimistic about what may happen over by DeHart Park with the Jacoby Street and Newark Way. There's a couple properties there which are like warehouses, old factories. There's a couple like garages and auto body shops. So there might be a chance to put something in there that we could get excited about. And so I know we've recently relaxed the development restrictions on that area, which hopefully will bring in different businesses, and then we have a chance at increasing ratables, which is the easiest way to relieve some of the tax burden.
And what about specifically the post office project? There's obviously been a lot of contention with that, the design, the tax abatements that were given, and now it's costing money to run the sewer line and through the parking lot by Village Coffee, and a lot of parking disruptions. Were you a supporter or not of the whole way that was done, and if so, why or why not?
I agreed with the, keep the village a village and get it right, the post at the PO site kind of marketing campaign. I think those are both good sentiments. I definitely, I didn't find a need to keep the post office building as it was. I thought it was, at best an attractive bomb shelter, and at worst an eyesore. So I was okay with them taking the building down. But given the prime real estate that was, I thought it was right to really, take a measured approach, make sure we got the right project, for the town. And I'm not left with a feeling like that was really the case of how this played out. But with that being said, we have a plan, we have a developer, they own the land, and they're going to have to, live within the constraints of the agreement. And that's a reality. But I will say that the recent easement discussion to add a dumpster right by that tunnel.
Yeah, that's another thing they requested.
It's outrageous. I mean, it's you're giving this developer property land for free, which I don't even know why we would have even considered that. I'm sure it's gonna be some form of an eyesore, but I guess we'll see what the plans look like. But it's going to smell, and it's going to be right next to the walkway that people use to go to and from the train. And we don't have to do that. And I'm going to go to the planning board meeting in October and see what the discussion is there. But I hope that we don't make this decision. And if we do, we need to get much closer to the fair market value for that land. I was looking on the Maplewoodian today about your coverage of the parking lot and when we're going to buy it or lease it, and the land was appraised at $600,000. You divide that by the number of spots that are there. It's certainly more than $5,000 that was the offering that Mayor DeLuca offered as payment for that spot. So if we're going to do it, we at least need to get the right revenue for the town, because again, you only get one shot at this and then it's gone.
Yeah, for people who might not know, you're talking about when the post office project by JMF, which is going to have obviously 20 apartments and 5 shops. The original agreement required that all of the garbage and sanitation be collected inside the building in the basement. And then JMF came out recently and requested to be able to place a dumpster outside. And they were looking at the area of basically the Village Coffee parking lot, and there's an area right next to where the building is going to be where they want to put a dumpster, and they said it would be enclosed somewhat by brick or concrete walls, but it would still be an additional spot and take up space, and the township suggested charging them $5,000 for that, although not everyone on the township committee agreed. I think they wanted a higher amount.
Zero.
Yeah. It was going to be zero, and then they requested $5,000, but even that is not being agreed to by everyone. But yeah, that's what you're talking about. So that's another thing, and obviously JMF has come out with different requests, and the other big thing we've written about is this sewer easement where they have to put a new sewer line in, and the township is paying for all of it. I believe we had, I don't have the figures right offhand, but there's money for easement, and then there's actually money charges for the actual construction, which we discussed. But all that's, that's part of the deal they broke. They brokered, I should say. The township, and it was the township doing it, and they could have demanded more, but they didn't. So.
Right, and like any transaction, there's gives and takes.
Right.
And so I don't object to them spending the money on the sewer line and the easement. I think your reporting had it like $60,000 for the actual work and maybe $30,000 for the easement.
Right. It was about 90-something thousand for everything.
Yeah, and as long as we're transparent and we're aware, like I hate to see a developer take advantage of us because we didn't do our homework or we haven't thought things out. And I also hate to see us feel pressured to do things like, to put this dumpster outside because we want the restaurant. Like, sure, it would be great to have another restaurant in Maplewood Village, but don't let the threat of the restaurant force us into making quick decisions that we end up regretting later. And that's something that if I'm on the township committee, I won't be rushed. I'll make it known what my concerns are and what it is that I need to feel comfortable with to proceed. And then it's a group. We discuss it, and hopefully we come to the right answer because of that discussion. And I hope to serve on the committee, and I think those discussions will benefit the whole town, and not just making me comfortable with what we're doing, but get the best outcome for everybody in town because of that discussion.
Okay, again, we're talking to Mike Summersgill, Republican candidate for Township Committee. What are other concerns you have for the last couple of minutes, things you would want people to know about positions and issues that are important to you, other than those we've discussed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other things that are out there is we have a lot of ordinances, and we keep adding to it, and this is something that I think philosophically I'll have to work through if I make it onto the township committee. But I don't like to see us like creating ordinances to drive being good neighbors. Like, I don't think you should regulate neighborism or neighborhood or the spirit of the neighborhood. So I think the leaf blower ban was a good example of that. I listened to the arguments, and I think some of them on the pro-leaf blower side were compelling, but there was also things that could be addressed as just, two neighbors talking and saying, hey, I've got this organic garden in my backyard, and and my son is ill, and these are, vegetables are part of the care that we give him. And when you blow your leaf blower or your landscaper does it, the stuff ends up in my garden. Like, can we work something out? And I know my neighbors. And I think that we would be able to work that out. Now, it's not always that smooth, and people are protective of their properties and their space and their personal rights and those things. And I get that, but I think that we need to take a hard look at, like, is the answer always an ordinance or regulation? And just because we have the power to do it doesn't mean that we should do it.
And the only thing I would ask is, obviously you're a Republican in Maplewood. What would you say to people who say, oh, I can't vote for a Republican because I'm a Democrat, as many people in Maplewood are? What would be your argument to maybe say, look, give me a shot, not necessarily look at the party?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously come across those people as I'm out knocking on doors every weekend. I was just out, today on New England Road and I think Collingwood Road or Collingwood Terrace. I'm not great at the last part of it. I think it's Collingwood Road. But so I've come up to that question, and as passionate as people are, they want the best thing for the town. And so I asked them. I said, well, would you vote for the Democrat if you knew that the Republican was the best person for the job? And they invariably say, no, I would vote for the best person for the job. And so that's my marching orders. I've got to show and communicate to, my neighbors, my friends, the members of this community, that I'm the best person for this job. And we're talking about this election between myself and Frank. It's a binary choice. And I know I have to do the legwork to make people have more information than just the party affiliation to base their decision. And that's what I'm focused on for the next, 45 to 50 days to try to close out strong.
One thing that a lot of people have asked me when they hear about you being a Republican is, what is your thought on Donald Trump? And do you support him? Would you vote for him as a Republican?
Yeah, I mean, I don't support Donald Trump. It's kind of an interesting situation because it's like...
You're not alone. There's a lot of Republicans who don't, so...
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, I literally had nothing to do with Donald Trump in the sense that, by the time the primary came to New Jersey, it was already decided.
Right.
And I didn't vote for him, and I knew it was largely symbolic, as many Republicans in Maplewood did. And I use the word, I guess, many as a relative term because there's not many versus the number of Democrats. But so it's something that is out of my control, and clearly wasn't something that I even contemplated when I was thinking about running in January and February of this year. But at the end of the day, a lot of my concern around Donald Trump is I don't think he's qualified. and he's done nothing to surround himself with good people to give him good advice or insight. And I can't support someone that doesn't recognize that they need the advice of people that know what they're talking about, and that could be any issue. And if you don't recognize that and you don't build a good team, you're not going to be successful. And I don't want to be, I don't want to see how that manifests itself with somebody in the highest position in our country. So, I think that the divisiveness of the campaign has made it tough for everybody this political season, and I'll be glad when it's behind us. But I'm worried, what the future holds, and I'd like to see us move past partisanship and focus on compromise.
So who would you vote for? Would you vote for Hillary Clinton or someone else, or not at all for president? Yeah,
I mean, I still get slammed again when I'm knocking on doors and I say I'm not decided, because then people say, well, that means you're considering Trump. But the truth is, I really am taking a look at Jill Stein as well as the Libertarian candidate. I never spent that much time focusing on the third party candidate, but I feel like if I'm going to vote this year, I need to look at everybody. So I'm going to do that. And then there's been some things around Hillary Clinton that have resonated with me that I wasn't aware of. It's kind of like, her start in politics and her service of, children and as a lawyer, what she was advocating for. But I don't find her likable, which I think is the same as many people in the country. And then it's a matter of, well, do you have to like the person for them to do a good job? The answer to that question is no, but it doesn't make it any easier to pull the lever for them, come November.
But so you pretty safe you wouldn't vote for Trump, but you not sure who you might vote for among the others.
Yeah, at this point, and I guess to be fair, anything can happen between now and Election Day, but I can't really see at this point Trump changing enough to get my vote. But I've got an open mind, and people think there's a myth about undecided voters or something, but I'm gonna take a look, and I'll make a decision.
Excellent. Well, we've been talking to Mike Summersgill, the Republican candidate for Township Committee. Tell people where they should go to reach out to you if they have questions about what your campaign's doing, either email or phone, and whatever website might be good.
Sure. So
what are the best places?
So I think that we have an operational experience gap on the Township Committee. So the easiest website to find me is opexgap.com, so opexgap.com. And then on there has my email address, and I think my phone number is listed too. The email address is summersgilltc, as in Township Committee, @gmail.com. But I'm available. I'd love to hear from anybody that's got issues or ideas, or just says, hey, I want to meet you before I vote for you, and let's grab a cup of coffee. That's the beauty of local politics, is I'm accessible and available. So
excellent, and we'll continue to post all events as we do for every candidate, and we'll see what happens on election night.
All right, great, Joe. Thanks for doing this. I mean, as part of this process, I've gotten more sensitive to local news, and I think you do great work, and you feel a great need for us that is out there, and I think it's important to the part of the process. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing as well.
Well, thank you, and good luck.
Thanks a lot, Joe.